as a graduate engineer, my first assignment was I joined my family business, coming from a middle class family with deep roots in our values and beliefs. The desire was to do my engineering just like my father had done, and join his engineering consulting business, and that's what I did. Precisely what I did straight out of engineering. So, but couple of, or maybe not even couple, a year into it, a year and a half into my engineering, I realized that somewhere deep inside, I had this desire to do something more, to do something that I could call a reflection of my own doing. And I think that's where the desire actually started to come by, to say that this is not what I was meant to do. And I went to my father and I said that somewhere I feel I want to move on, and maybe the first step would be to enroll into an MBA. And that's how BIMTECH happened. Into BIMTECH and into the business school, it was fantastic because there was this deep desire to learn. I wasn't sure as to what I wanted to do, but I was absolutely certain that I wanted to make an impact. I was deeply inspired by global businesses, about how businesses can transform economies, how and what a lasting impact a good business can actually make. In my engineering and during the time I was with my father, I had this opportunity as an engineer to work with a number of consulting projects at different in different industries, from a steel mill to a sugar plant to a food processing plant to coal handling in big power stations. So I had seen quite a bit of industry. And I was always very eager to understand what actually ran those plants. How was business actually conducted? And that was the deep desire to learn. And I think that deep desire to learn probably has been with me through and through. And it's and that continues. More to say that, it, as recently as 3 years back, I was back at Wharton in the US to do a advanced program on leadership. So I think the desire for learning must continue, because what you all must understand is that this whole process, which is going to be there with you over the next 2 years, while it is extremely important, the learning cannot stop there. But what is most important to understand is that first and foremost, you must make these 2 years count, which means that you must learn whatever is going to be available to you from the ecosystem, from all the stakeholders, from all your teachers and all your peers and everybody who will be there in the ecosystem. You must learn and learn and learn. And one of the most important things that will be there for that learning to really happen, and for that learning to really make a transformative impact, is that you must first learn to honor the room. And what do I mean by honoring the room? What I mean by honoring the room starts by humility. To shed all of this, I know it all attitude, to respect the process of teaching, to respect your teachers, to respect your peers, to respect everybody that you would interact in. People who will come from the industry, places where you will go and intern, places where you will go and do your summer projects and so on and forth. Each and every moment that you get, you must make the full use of it. And if you're able to do that, this whole discipline, this whole desire, this whole kick that you will get from learning will continue. And because learning is so important, and what better time than this present unprecedented COVID crisis to actually tell you how important learning is. I have never done till 2 months ago a virtual webinar, but in the last 2 months, I've done industry panel discussions. I've held my virtual town hall with 700 people. And here I'm again talking to all of you, all on a virtual format. Something that would have actually took me to places physically is now being done from my study here at home, directly to all of you. So learning, and very quickly how to adapt to this environment, how all businesses took to the virtual world. tells you that learning can never stop. And even now, you will see businesses will need to adapt, businesses will adapt, but they will only be able to adapt if the people in the business, because businesses are run by organizations. Organizations are made of people, people like you and me. And if we don't have the desire, innate desire to learn, those teams which are not of the learning types in businesses will tend to take those businesses to the downside. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, teams which have people like you and me who have this innate desire to adapt, to learn, full of resilience, to pick themselves up, and to take this environment on, will lead their businesses in a totally different direction. They will survive, eventually will also thrive. But for the moment, coming back to my journey and this very important principle of learning, when in B school, I used to actually get fascinated by the amount of interactions we used to have and the case studies that we do, etc., etc. That as soon as I was out of B school, I was on my journey to move on. And my first step in the international world actually happened straight out of B school. I was forced into a startup which was into international business. That took me to places like Singapore and Malaysia as my first stop, which was more about at that time, if you would remember this in 97, we were in the heart of the Asian tiger economies. The financial crisis hit in 98. But till then, the ASEAN was the place to be. There was so much of intent that the Indian government was showing post opening up in 91 to look at investments from ASEAN. Those were early days when we brought in a lot of investment from ASEAN for infrastructure development in India, and also looked at a lot of exports linkages. So my first couple of years was really based on building international business for a startup in Southeast Asia. And as destiny would have it, in December of '98, while I was on a flight from Kuala Lumpur to Amsterdam, and I landed in Amsterdam, I was being paged even before the plane landed to contact ground staff, and the ground staff told me to take a flight back to India because I lost my only brother in a car accident on that intervening night of the 4th of December '98. Life stands still. Young man, young wife, young couple, and a young brother gone. To build life from here was yet another of my key trials and tribulations. I left my job, was not in any state of mind to actually do my work, was in no way mentally fit to actually do what I was doing. We were going through shit and hell. And that's where one of the key relationships, like I mentioned a short while back, came through. One of my key professors who had developed an immense respect and liking for me and vice versa was Dr. D.N. Pandey. And I still remember this was '99, and Dr. Pandey and I recently at one of the so he's a dean for one of the other business schools, and he had invited me to speak to a larger audience, and I was reminding him during the talk as to what and how important some kind deeds can be. And that was a time in '99 that he, along with my wife, actually decided that if they had to bring me out of the shithole that I was getting into, they had to send me somehow back to education, because they realized that my passion lied in learning. And if I was to find some solace, if I was to find some element of semblance in my mind, I needed a therapy. And that's how they actually got me enrolled on a one-year program with IIM Calcutta. And '99, I took a sabbatical from work, not that I was working, not that I could work, and went and spent a year at Joka at the IIM Calcutta campus to do an advanced program, which was only the second year that they were running at IIM Calcutta for executives. This was a program along with MIT Sloan, with Dr. Ranjan Das was running at that point in time. And that gave me an opportunity to find my bearings once again. And I can't thank my wife and Dr. Pandey enough for who I am today, because a lot of what you would see today in front and behind all the glamour that goes with the titles of CEOs and all-time directors and billion-dollar enterprises, etc., is a very human being, which went through his own trials and tribulations and found a way to start rebuilding life. So post that 99, 2000, I was back picking up a job. And since my life was all about international business, I joined one of the large international trading houses called Satnam Overseas. They were one of the trading partners in my life in the previous life that I had while I was working in Singapore and KL building international trading businesses. And they offered me an assignment to build the international. They were basically into rice, and they had a brand by the name of Kohinoor, and today that company is known as Kohinoor Foods Limited. And I was tasked to actually build a business which was all about building something which was non-rice. Rice was core for them, and they wanted to diversify and build some adjacencies around international trading. And that was once again by destiny that I was thrust with the whole thing about building businesses from scratch. So that event took me first to the United States, where I helped them set up distribution for their existing business while I was scouting of what international trading opportunities could be for the food businesses that I was setting up. I helped put up distribution for the branded rice program in the United States, first on the West Coast, then on the Midwest, and then on the East Coast. Eventually coming to the UK, where we set up a factory. And the next step was really where my interaction with the very evolved UK food industry gave us this whole perspective of looking at building up a state-of-the-art food factory in India. And I'm extremely proud that we actually built one of the finest food factories in the country, built purely for the export market, working with some of the largest Fortune 500 brands, from Mars and Master Foods to Sunrise to Tiger Brands to Tesco, Walmart, Coles, Woolworths, 7-Eleven, and you name it. And all of this from a state-of-the-art food factory outside Delhi in Sonipat, Haryana. Such was the tremendous appeal of that business, that small business that I actually built for Kohinoor or Satnam Overseas actually was sold at multi-million dollar multiples to one of the largest food brands called McCormick just before I left Satnam and Kohinoor to start Del Monte in India. And this was in 2008. 17th of January 2008, we signed the definitive agreement for McCormick to buy the small business that I had built up. And on the 18th of January, as the first and founding member of Del Monte, I started the Del Monte journey in India for the JV Bharti Del Monte. And since then, the journey has been about building Del Monte in India. A lot of you can find a lot of details on Del Monte. Probably some of you would know as a consumer. A lot of you can actually find a lot of details thanks to the Googles of the world. There's so much of data available on the repository of the online web today that a lot of the repetition may not make too much of sense. But I'll just stay with some of the key learnings that we've had. My initial part was where I started as the founding member, the first person actually on the team for Del Monte. So the journey of Bharti Enterprises into food started in 2004 when Sunil made the joint venture between Bharti Enterprises and the Rothschilds family way back in 2004 to actually look at linking agriculture or farm to fork was the and is still one of the most repeated rhetoric. And in 2004, Bharti started this journey to actually look at agriculture in a very big way and how they could play a role in in agriculture and maybe build the next Airtel. Um, and that led us to a, a level where we actually got ourselves into a joint venture with Del Monte, because you needed someone who could actually bring in the expertise on food. And Del Monte, like I've said, is one of the oldest brands in food. Came into the joint venture in end of 2007, and I was tasked in January of 2008 to start that journey in India. Today, Del Monte is a very strong brand in both the retail market. We are one of the largest and we are the number one brands in the space of Italian with olive oil and pasta. We are one of the top three brands in the ketchup and mayonnaise space, where we are actually number one in terms of the sheer quantum of ketchup and mayonnaise that we produce in this country, because a lot of it actually goes also into the food services in places where you would eat in a KFC or a McDonald's or a Domino's. Not many people know that if you were to order a Domino's pizza, majority of the vegetarian topping, except for the bread and the cheese, is actually all Del Monte, including the sauce that goes on pizza in India. Not only that, we actually export to a number of countries in Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific for Domino's and Burger King. That is a business that we've taken the last decade to build from zero to where we are. Building the manufacturing, building the brand, building the sales and distribution, the innovation, and everything that would go in making an integrated value chain. So that's how the journey has been in terms of the work that I've done professionally. But the most exciting and the most rewarding and gratifying journey has been the role of being able to play the role of a leader, to be able to pass on my experiences and my learnings to as many people within the organization and in the ecosystem, and to the wonderful people like yourselves that I so many times get an opportunity to interact with. And my desire has always been to always look at every interaction as an interaction where I get to learn something, and if I can use that opportunity to ensure that the audience also learns from it, would be something that would help us all move forward. Now, if I was to ask you all a simple question, and I was to ask you on a count of 1 to 3 to just raise your hand to someone who doesn't want a better tomorrow, I don't think any of you are raising your hands, because everyone does want a better tomorrow. But the matter of fact is, what would make your tomorrow better if you're not learning today? So in case you believe that tomorrow will be better because of luck, then luck, as I just heard in one of the Netflix on Sherlock Holmes yesterday, where Sherlock says that luck is for the stupid. If you think the world is going to, or the universe is going to conspire to either make you or break you, which is what luck is, then you're stupid. And I think somewhere it resonates. And I'm not challenging. I'm not challenging the fact that at any point in time you need to take this whole thing in a manner of binary, 0 or 1. But I think if at any point in time we look at all of this as something that is going to help us learn, your tomorrow will definitely be better. And I think every interaction that we all have is an opportunity to learn from one another. Business, and you will learn very quickly in the corporate world and in your business school. Business is common sense. So then, why this entire thing about B schools and the aura around B schools, etc.? And this entire thing is all about the fact that business, being commonsensical, common sense is uncommon these days. And that's where this beauty of not allowing your intellectual arrogance sometime to get the better of you would come to the fore. So what do I actually mean by intellectual arrogance? And that's something that a lot of us can fall easy prey to, especially people who come with pedigree educations or who come with cultural conditioning of having had the world at their feet, great schools, great education, And suddenly we feel that we are a cut above everybody else. And this is the fundamental thing that you guys would need to learn. I am often asked, when we go and hire at B schools as to what is it that I'm looking for. And we hire across the spectrum from the IIMs to ISBs, and we also come to BIMTECH. And across the board, whether it is looking at lateral talent with experience at an ISB, or looking at lateral and fresh talent with places at IIMs and so on and so forth, my response has always been the same. I said, I see the entire management community, the student community, sometimes on a spectrum, where on the one side, we do not back ourselves. And on the other side of the spectrum, we have this huge intellectual arrogance as a baggage. And both of them are disastrous. The first one is no use going into net practice and practicing every day. When it comes to crunch time and the match, you actually don't back yourself. And on the other side, there's no use having this intellectual arrogance if you bring it to your space of work and your job as a leader. You communicate in a language that I don't understand. Now, if I don't understand where you're coming from, then you're adding no value to me as a leader. Because the fundamental thing that you must realize, guys, is that as soon as you will do your B school, you'll probably be placed in decent jobs with teams to manage, maybe at the start or subsequently, maybe not in the trainee program, but subsequently for sure. And when you're going to manage those teams will look up to you. So if you're going to speak in a language that they don't understand and get no value from, they will disengage. So the fundamental thing that we all need to understand for leadership is that the job of a leader is not to create followers. So the obvious condition to be, or the necessary condition to be labeled a leader, is not the position that you will be put in, is but by the followership that you will have. So the necessary condition for leadership is to have followers. But on the other side, the true objective of leadership is not to create followers, but to create leaders. So if the objective of a good leader is to go out and share his experiences and teach people how to fish rather than feeding them, how would you do that if you're not going to be speaking to me in a language that I understand, and which by virtue of me understanding adds value to me and brings me up? And I think that's fundamental for all of us to understand. And that would be my one great learning that I've had over the years too, which I share both internally in the organization and outside. For all of us to really understand that if you want to move forward, which is what we started off by saying, that everybody wants a better tomorrow. If you really want to move forward, then we must continue to add value, first to ourselves and then to the ecosystem. You must realize, guys, that every relationship will only stand the test of time. And these relationships are both professional and personal. And these relationships will only stand the test of time if you add value in them. I mean, look at a relationship between a product and a consumer, which makes the product or a service become a brand. And you all would understand that a brand is different from a product or a service, because a brand means so much more. A simple product doesn't mean that much, right? So an entertainment star and an Amitabh Bachchan are two different things as to what they mean to you as a consumer of entertainment and entertainment from Amitabh Bachchan. And similarly, Mercedes is not just an automobile brand. People actually don't buy it for going from home to the office, from home to the milkwala or the market, but they actually buy it just to show it to the world outside that you arrived in life. And I think that's the beauty of this whole thing, which you must all understand, that what is that value that product or service has actually added, which traverses the journey between the tangibility of a product and service to being a brand. And that's all about value addition. That's what value addition you can do to yourselves and become the true leaders that I speak of. Just a couple of more points which are more relevant for all of us in the environment that we find ourselves in. And you couldn't have been tested at a more unprecedented time than what you're going to be tested in now, which is a world that none of us have actually seen, where predictability, as we call it in business, is now gone into scenario planning. So you need to plan scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. And I was just sharing with someone the other day. I was on a panel discussion, an industry panel discussion, day before yesterday, and I was saying that gone are the days where you can predict business models, and you can talk about on a budget of plus minus 5%, 10% tolerance, because you are in this huge uncertain time where there's so much of dynamism with what is happening that you really cannot be certain that what you are working with is going to happen. And lo and behold, this was day before yesterday night. And I wake up yesterday morning to realize that because of overnight 2 locations being declared containment zone, one of my factories had to be shut down. And one of my biggest distribution warehouses or fulfillment centers had to be shut down. Now, if you don't have plan A, B, C, D, and probably E and F at this point in time, as we call scenario building, you're staring at disaster. And hence, it's very important that all of us recognize that we will have to be adaptable. We will have to be flexible. We will have to be resilient. We will have to be tough. We will have to stay courageous, and we will have to stay positive. Because this too shall pass. But till that moment in time, we have to wait this through. And you as students who will be entering the schools would be getting education in different forms, whether it's online and at some point physical. Some of the early trainings and internships will be again virtual, I would imagine. Currently, this is the first time we've actually done virtual onboarding of interns, summer interns, which were coming from B schools this summer. We actually honored all our commitments. We've taken all of them on board virtually and are giving them different projects and finding different ways to add meaning to their lives. The easiest way that we could have done was to say that, no, this is the first time that we can bring them in. But true leadership is all about honoring your commitments. Remember what I said right in the beginning, you honor the room. You must understand for long-term sustainability. And this is another thing that I keep getting asked. A lot of people across B schools and students have asked me, what makes a good professional? And I've always replied consistently on only one dimension, which probably is the fifth dimension, which is that try and be good human beings. You try and be good human beings, and I promise you, you'll be a great professional as a true subset of that, and that's enough. The fact of the matter is that we sometimes forget what are the true values that should help us navigate our lives. And if your GPS is anchored in a very strong ethical and value system, resilience that we keep talking about, self-belief that we keep talking about, inner confidence that we talk about, will not be difficult, because you will be always guided from here. And when you're guided from here, he takes care. And that's fundamental. A lot of times we think we are in a position to influence outcomes. You cannot be furthest from the truth. You are not in a position to influence outcomes. What you are in a position to do, because outcomes is his domain. Your scope of influence is your intent and your effort that you put into any assignment, into anything that you do. As a principal, I have always evaluated people only on these two parameters, intent and effort, not on the outcomes. You can only play so much of a role. The how of business is what makes businesses sustainable. And there are plenty of Google stories that you can get of businesses that used to be massive at one point in time, but have just fallen by the wayside because they lost their GPS. They were not navigated by the process, the how of building businesses. The how keeps you in good stead. The how ensures the longevity, the sustainability, which is the most important thing to do. And at the end of the day, don't forget, business is common sense. Keep things simple. It's easy for you to understand the business then. And it's very easy for people that you will work with to understand where you're coming from. And I will just wrap this up of commonsensical approach with one example from a Bollywood movie, and no taking away from the fact that I talked about Amitabh Bachchan, so I'll use Amitabh and his movie of Sarkar to give you an example of how easy it is for us to understand business. You know, you will read so many definitions of what a brand is. You'll probably end up having massive academic, theoretical, researchical, and what have you definitions of it. But the best definition of branding I actually got from an Amitabh movie. And if you're able to pick that up and internalize it as your train of thought, you're never going to forget the principle of branding. And this is a story from the movie called Sarkar. Amitabh, as you all know, for a lot of you who would have seen it, and for some of you who haven't, Amitabh plays the role of Sarkar. And there's a plot in the movie to actually kill him. And there's this Swami who's plotting the conspirator and is plotting his death. And he makes a statement, and he said, Sarkar ko marne mein, or Subhash Nagre, which is his real name, Sarkar ko marne mein और सुभाष नागरे को मारने में एक फर्क है. सुभाष नागरे एक इंसान और सरकार एक सोच. And that's what brand is. It's here, the intangible. But the journey from the tangible of a four-wheel and a driving seat to the brand Mercedes has to be traversed by businesses. So with that, I welcome you all to this community of post-graduation and B-School. I congratulate all of you for having got admission to BIMTECH and maybe to many other B schools. And I wish you all a wonderful journey from here on. And I'm happy to take any questions and give you more perspectives if there are any specific things that you would like me to speak about or highlight. And I'll be more than happy to do that. I hope Prince, I have, and Gagan, I have stayed to my time. Happy to take questions from the floor. Prince, do I pick up questions from the chat or?
The participants can just unmute themselves and then they can ask their questions if they have any.
Well, that's brilliant. So if people can unmute and maybe even show me your faces, it'll be wonderful. No questions?
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Hi. Looking at this pandemic situation, what could be the situation of Indian economy in next 2 years, and how the other markets will change for the MBA graduates in India?
Your voice is breaking up. If I've heard you right, you asked me about the next 2 years and how the Indian economy is going to be.
Yeah, and the MBA graduates, about fresher MBA graduates in business, like how would be the job perspective, how would be the business perspectives?
Can I have your name?
My name is Murtala.
So Muthuram, thank you for the question. I just talked about predictability. Very difficult to predict, my friend, as to how the situation is going to play out. We are hearing so many analyses and prognosis and so on and so forth. Very difficult to have a specific answer to this. But all I can tell you is that at the moment, the way we look at it is that there's a global reset in the world economy, and that's clearly visible to everybody. As we move along, there is going to be an impact in terms of how the various facets of different economies will play out. You're already hearing of massive stimulus is being given out by different governments. We saw a massive 20% stimulus being announced by Japan, followed by an 11% from China. And even now, India's caught up and said that it's going to be at least a 10% kind of a stimulus. So there's going to be a lot of work that will happen on rebuilding of the global economies. But I think the fundamental thing is going to be that there's going to be a shift to a new normal. You see, every crisis does leave its impressions. And those impressions, some of them tend to have permanent effects. We all have seen, the crisis of the Great Depression or the World War II, and how some of them had an impact. World War II had a big impact in terms of women joining the workforce in terms of professional workspace, because everybody else was fighting the war. You also saw that with globalization, with a lot of companies, especially led by the United States, which was one of the most least affected, if I keep the Pearl Harbor out, of the US companies and brands going around and building the world economy. And that's how brands like the Caterpillar, which we look at earth moving equipment, helped rebuild Europe, or Coke went outside with the US armies, or confectionery companies like the Wrigley's went out, and so on and so forth. So plenty of examples that you would see. Crisis like a COVID will again have its impact. I'm sure one big impact is clearly being visible in terms of we all being locked in. I haven't been able to go out for my run, and the one thing I'm really looking forward is where I can just go back and run. But that's the new normal, right? So you go from your office to your study to your terrace, and you do whatever you can, but you're not able to go outside and do something that you've been doing for till just about 2 months ago. So a lot of things will eventually set into a new normal. What is that new normal going to be? I really cannot answer that at this point in time, because I don't think a lot of us can actually, hand on heart, do any predictive analysis to this. But to an 80% confidence level, one can definitely see that some global trends are already emerging. People are going to stay more at home, work from home, virtual, online, e-commerce, reduced mobility. People don't want to travel unnecessarily. Are some of the things, and extreme caution around safety and hygiene. What would all of this mean? All of this would actually mean that brands will play a big role. Organized businesses will play a big role. You'll be very cautious of what you eat, where you eat, how you eat, where is that coming from, and so on and so forth. Just to give you a simple example that all of us can relate to. Just a couple of days back on the panel, I was asked what will happen to consumption. Well, consumption is not going anywhere. Consumption will stay. We'll figure out a way to address job securities, and you will see a new shift. Yeah. So some industries will get impacted in the shorter term till we find a way around this. So in the shorter term, travel, hospitality, tourism will be impacted, but new ways will happen. So people may be restrictive in traveling for tourism by air, but 100, 200, 300 kilometers from Delhi, going by your own private vehicles to the hills, option, absolutely. Puts more local tourism happening, absolutely. So different things will happen. People will want to consume more entertainment at home, want more facets of entertainment at home. What happens to personal gyms all coming home? At least in the shorter term, restaurants, delivery. So, in many ways, yes, there is going to be a pressure on businesses for sure. Businesses will have to readdress business models. Costs will have to be addressed. A lot of costs will move variable. So you will see a new normal even in the way we would conduct businesses. But as we would move along, new business models, new business opportunities, reallocation of money to different segments, and thereby job opportunities in different segments would definitely come up. So that's the way one would want to keep that theory at this point in time, not to get overtly pessimistic about it. This is definitely not Armageddon. So this is not the end of the world. We will, as humanity has seen every time, the resilience of humanity will come to the fore, and I'm absolutely certain we will find the way. I mean, we will find a way to deal with this, to live with this, to have opportunities to mitigate its effect, and eventually a vaccine. And in the interim, businesses and the economies and society at large will find ways in which to cohabitate with this new environment. So to cut the chase, you will see reallocation of budgets across industries, which means different industries. So growth will be not secular. Similarly, disaster will not be secular across, or the impact, adverse impact would not be secular across industries. Different industries will behave differently in the context of where they find themselves in. And within industries as well, different businesses will find themselves in a very different stage. So even if an industry is doing well, all businesses in that industry may not do well. So Charles Darwin and the theory of the fittest, and people who are more adaptive and innovative will definitely come to the fore. So very long answer to a small question.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Anybody else?
Hello, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So my name is Harsha.
Yes, Harsha.
And I had the question is that due to this pandemic, there is a visible increase of technology to run the business. In this scenario, I do believe that after 2 years or 3 years, technology will be preferred more by the new businesses as well as the businesses which are already at a good stage. How can we work, or what are we expected to do in order to compete and survive in the upcoming business world?
We as in students, management students, you're talking about yourself?
Yes, sir.
Is that how you refer we as?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Sorry?
sir.
Okay. So I think Harsha, I think it's a very apt question, and coming from your generation, it's something which is so natural to all of you. You guys were born in the smartphone world. You guys have lived in a technology world, and that's the same technology that you're going to use. I mean, let me give you a simple example.
Mm-hmm.
You all have heard of Reliance, right?
Yes.
You all have heard of Jio, and you heard of the massive impacts of how the telecom industry has shaped and changed in the last 3 years. You've just heard about
Yes.
investments of Facebook into Reliance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Facebook also owns WhatsApp, right?
Correct.
Jio is a telecom platform. Jio or Reliance also has Reliance Fresh as supermarkets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, a technology platform of WhatsApp, which runs on their own technology platform of Jio, can be used by a retailer. So, Harsha, where are you from?
So, born in Kerala, living in UP.
Living in UP?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so whichever city or town of UP you are living in, your colony would have a small store there, neighborhood store, as we call it, the Kirana, where you would
Yes.
probably get your grocery from.
Correct.
Now, this small store has a small owner who uses a smartphone, or if not a smartphone, a phone that can handle WhatsApp, right?
Correct. Yes.
That WhatsApp can be used by him if he just moves his services to Jio to order replenishment for his small store,
Mm-hmm.
and it will get replenished by Reliance Retail, all on one platform called JioMart. On the front end is a very small consumer understanding of fulfilling needs of a small retailer using technology in real time. In the otherwise world, this small retailer, the smaller he is or wherever he is, has to wait for regular supplies or salesmen to come. But here, he is in a position to real-time order, or the platform itself is able to predict real-time ordering for him. So these are all things that are happening from a technology point of view. But the basis of this is both logical front end, which is commonsensical business, which you will learn a lot of at B school, and the technology back end, which is for the engineering side.
Okay.
So the bottom line or the common denominator is what, Harsha? The common denominator remains being able to frame the problem logically. Majority of the time, a solution to a problem lies in just reframing the problem. So your question was, what do we need to do in the world tomorrow? And my answer to you is, keep things simple. Remain commonsensical with your approach. Technology, you will adapt to whatever technology is going to be available at that time. So the common denominator is your logical thinking and reasoning, not your ability to adapt or not to adapt to technology, which will come any which way. So the fundamental thing that you will bring to the table, if I was to hire you 2 years from now, Harsha, is if you can hold on to a commonsensical, logical 5-minute conversation with me. If you're able to do that, technology or no technology, you will solve every problem. So what is the takeaway? The takeaway is focus on understanding the concepts that will come your way. Focus on this deep learning or desire to learn. It is important not to remember what happens when inflation goes up to interest rates. You can learn this formula that if there is high inflation, what is the central bank going to do as an immediate thing? You can learn this formula. But if you don't know what is behind it, you will never be able to implement it in business. And if you're not able to implement it in business, technology or no technology, you will not make for a good business leader. Have I answered
Absolutely.
your question, Harsha?
Absolutely, sir. Thank you very much.
Welcome. I think we can take 1 or 2 more questions, I would think.
Hello, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Aditi. I understand that you have completed several courses and certifications in what is that? Management and manage. Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, leadership development. So what I want to know is that who are these certifications ideally for, and after how long in your professional journey should one take these courses, and what are the perks do they offer?
What are the what?
Perks these courses offer in your career?
Aditi, learning offers no perk. Learning offers you a whole spectrum of opportunities. And that learning, you don't do it for the perk of it. You don't do it for the badge of it. You do it for your own evolution. And if you have that keenness to learn, like I was referring to in my journey, it will keep you in good stead. The courses you're referring to, probably you Google the LinkedIn profile, you've probably seen Wharton, INSEAD, IIM Calcutta, whatever, I don't know. Maybe that's what you're referring to, or CCL. These are all learning opportunities that would come your way as you would move along in your professional journey as part of different organizations and corporations. A lot of companies will actually, when they see potential in you, they will put you into different learning programs, and a lot of things will happen. But what is important? What is important is really to have that desire to learn, because you can only gain from all of this if you really want to take away something from it. And if I really want to take something from any conversation, I don't have to go to a Harvard to do that. Every day, and I keep telling this to my colleagues at work, to a lot of people that I interact with during my visits to different colleges and schools. If you just pick up the newspaper every day, there's so much to learn. When you read something and you don't understand it, that's an opportunity to go behind it and understand the concept as to what's really happening. So learning never stops, and learning should not be bucketed or should not be done for LinkedIn profiles to look smarter. Because if they are done, when it will come to crunch time, you will not be able to justify that learning. And that would not be long-term sustainable. So learn it for the right reasons, Aditi. Any more questions?
Hello, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Arundhati Tayal, and I wanted to know that what was your key to crack international business?
Key to crack international business.
Yes.
Arundhati.
Yeah, Arundhati.
Okay. Arundhati, I don't know if I can answer such a vast question with a simple answer. International business is such a vast subject. It obviously has a number of things linked to it. Are you an economics student or a commerce student or a science student?
I'm a science student currently in my third year.
Okay. As a science student, in school, did you read economics?
No, not at all.
Okay. Okay. So you would understand that if you put something at a higher level, it flows to a lower level to get an ecological balance.
Yeah, totally.
High pressure to low pressure, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So in international business, the first thing that we need to understand is that trade happens or used to happen because of comparative advantage. So the most simple thing is to understand how trade happens for, say, for example, agricultural commodities. You need wheat, you buy it from country that produces wheat. Then you identify the country that are producing wheat and you buy from the cheapest source. Wheat is wheat, and the cheapest source will supply to India. And that's how international business or trade would have happened when it all started. Now, international business in today's world has moved from commodities to services. IT is one big example. And value chains have moved from comparative advantage, which was the old Ricardian model, and went on to, you learn from Michael Porter and the competitive advantage of nations model, to now multi-dimensional models. There's huge geopolitical models that are coming up, and realignment of trading blocks and so on and so forth. So if you keep this whole gamut and then figure out that you are looking at international business, the most important thing that I would actually put emphasis on is something that a lot of people actually take for granted. You see, at the end of the day, business happens between organizations, but organizations are built by people. People who are able to build strong relationships end up building strong, sustainable businesses. To build relationships in any business or in any part of society, personal or professional, you need to add value. One of the most important value that you can add into any relationship is to show humility and mutual respect. Translate this to an international environment where there are two cultures. So you look at India and say the United States. There are two cultures at play. In India, we touch our parents' feet, right? In the United States, they call their parents by their first name. Are they right and we wrong? Or are we right or are they wrong? And this is what we call cultural conditioning. And in international business, you would probably come across and you will learn there's this saying which says, when cultures collide. So when cultures collide, you forget that humility and mutual respect, which leads to relationships not being strong enough. And I can tell you, my relationships from 2000 till the time I went to the United States till today all exist. I was on a call just a couple of days back with one of my colleagues in whose apartment I used to live in New York City, just checking on him as to how he is doing because of COVID and with New York being the epicenter of all of this. Plenty of examples I can share with you where my so-called buyers bailed me out of tough situations in business, helped me crack new businesses. And all of this was on the background of relationships or the cornerstone of relationships. So if you were to take my one simple key takeaway, if you really want to succeed in international business, you will have to have respect for international cultures, respect for their language, for their cuisine, for their mannerisms, and everything that forms their culture. Similarly, you would expect them to have that respect for you. And once that happens, that first and foremost thing of respect between two human beings, rest, as they say, is business, commonsensical. So if the Ricardian comparative advantage was to follow, competitive advantage would follow, all geopolitical trading blocks equation follows, everything comes much later. If this relationship doesn't work, all of these things would also fail. So that would be the cornerstone if you would take just one takeaway from this conversation.
Thank you so much for answering, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bellani. We are running out of time. And in fact, with a charismatic professional like you, the questions of these budding managers will never end. With this, we have come to the closure of our session. On behalf of BIMTECH and all our students, I would like to thank you for engaging with our budding managers and giving them some wonderful lessons in key management concepts, such as the objectives and fundamentals of a true leadership, scenario planning, importance of continuous learning, etc., etc. I am sure that with your continuous support and guidance, sir, the Institute shall be able to provide more such opportunities and key takeaways for aspiring managers to evolve as a better professional and more so as a better human being, as you rightly pointed out in your session today. With these words, I thank you once again, sir, and with your permission, would like to close this session. Thank you all for attending this session.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. I was just reading one comment which said that, does being CEO mean that you need to look serious every time? Absolutely not. You do not need to look serious at all. Humor is a very important part of life. And if I came across as very serious, then I can only tell you it's been a long week. So take care and don't go by the serious and bearded looking face. I still need to go back to my barber as well. So take care, folks. God bless you all. Absolutely wonderful to interact with you. I wish I could do this and could have done this in person. But these are unprecedented times. But thank you very much, Anshuman and Gagan and Prince and everybody at BIMTECH for organizing this. I'm sure all of you will have wonderful careers in front of you. As they say in today's world, stay safe, stay courageous, and stay positive. So God bless you and have a wonderful, wonderful life ahead of you. Thank you very much.